Amen. Well, you guys can take a seat. My name is Mike. I'm one of the pastors here at Revision. I'm excited to be here this morning. How about you? All right. So we're kicking off a brand new series of messages this morning about love, sex, relationships, and specifically marriage called Tighten the Knot. And it's going to be awesome. We got all kinds of resources for you guys. We just want to resource you well. We got a resource table with a tablecloth on it that Amazon sold as non-wrinkle. Which was a lie. But in addition to a whole bunch of wrinkles, it's got some books on there that we're selling for less than you can get them on Amazon. We just want to get them in your hands. It's got a bunch of other stuff we're going to be giving away over the course of this series. We also have a website that we designed just specifically for this series called tightenthenot.love. I didn't even know .love was a thing, but it is, and we have one. And it's got a bunch of content from the series, as well as other information and encouragement. And here's the reason we're doing this. We want to strengthen marriages. We want to strengthen your marriage. We want to invest in your marriage because we're convinced that when marriages get stronger, everybody wins. Everybody, not just the people in them, like our kids, the next generation wins. Our communities, our friends, our church wins when marriages get stronger. And I know not all of you are married, so I want to be clear right at the beginning. I think there's some critical, important, meaningful, powerful stuff in here for every single one of us, no matter where you're at on your journey. If you are married, if you'd like to get married someday, or if you're single and staying that way, but you're in a position to love and care for and advise and stand beside your friends or your kids or the people in your community who are married or headed in that direction, this series is for you. And I think it's important that we get started on this business of tightening the knot because there are a whole lot of us who understand how our shoes work better than we understand how our marriages work. All right? None of us would buy a new pair of shoes and tie them and decide, I think that knot will last me for the rest of my life. Right? We'd wreck our shoes. You'd wreck the heel by slipping your foot in there. The knot would get loose and it would come undone. But with our marriages, so often what we do is decide, I tied the knot. Back then, I should be good to go. It should be smooth sailing from here on out. But it doesn't work that way. Healthy relationships don't just happen. They take care and time and intentionality. Okay, and the truth is, anybody can tie the knot. It's really easy to do. Anybody can. And before you single people start shooting me death glares, can we just be real about this for a second? If you lower your standards far enough, you could get hitched by tonight. It's true. In the state of Iowa, to get a driver's license, you need to prove that you took a whole class to learn how to do it right. But to get a marriage license, you need $30 and a birth certificate. Right? It's easy to tie the knot. Tightening the knot takes work. And that's why I think so many of our marriages start like this. Just that whole picture perfect, everything you've ever dreamed of, and the dress and the flowers and the wedding, and it's all great, and then they end up like this. All right, some of us have experienced both of those on the same day. If you're looking confused, like it looks like Jenny in those pictures, but who's the skinny guy with hair? I didn't always look like this, okay? And now you know how she treats me. But that's why we're doing this series. But seriously though, it's interesting to think about how many marriages start off so beautifully and end up so hideously. Like we know no one approaches the altar with the idea they want to have the most miserable marriage possible. But there are a lot of people living in misery and a whole lot of marriages break apart. And we got to ask the question, why? Like what happened? I think there's this pattern that gets repeated for so many of us in our lives over and over and over again. Sometime after the fairy tale wedding, we begin to notice cracks appearing in our relationship. And our instinct is to try and figure out when the cracks appeared and to figure that they must have appeared sometime after the wedding. We look back, and we're like, before we got married, we were so happy. Everything was going great, and then it wasn't perfect maybe, but we were really in love, and we were really excited to get married, and now we're married, and now it's hard. Why is it hard? This must have started when he or when she or after we try and pinpoint the point during our marriage when things got rocky. In our world, so many people do this. We end up blaming marriage itself for the fact that things are hard. But I want to tell you something this morning. The cracks that are in your relationship, they didn't happen after you got married. Your behavior and your actions and your interactions maybe make you notice them only now, but those cracks, They didn't come post-wedding. Those cracks happened before the two of you even met. It's a big part of the reason we're surrounded by so many loose knots and broken knots is that we've been sold on a few lies by our culture. There's this stuff we've been conditioned to believe from the time we were kids about love and marriage that shaped our expectations and our hopes and our dreams and our behaviors. And it's left us with a broken foundation before we ever even started trying to build a life together. And so step one of this Tighten the Knot series is to go back to like the foundation level. We're going to build or rebuild or repair some of the cracks in the foundations of what we believe about love and marriage. And specifically this morning, I want to talk about two things. These two big ideas that permeate our society. These two myths that we tend to believe that set us up to love one another and do marriage in a whole different way than God says we were built to love one another and do marriage. And the myths are these. Number one, love is a feeling. And number two, to be complete, I have to find the one. Okay, so this first myth that love is a feeling. Don't get me wrong, it's great to feel loved and feel loving. Just have like all the butterflies and the warm fuzzies, and all of us who are married can point to a time in our lives where it felt like every love song on the radio was written about us. We were just hooked on a feeling, high on believing. And that feeling of love is very real. But feelings come and feelings go. And if we buy into the idea that love, like the kind of love that it takes to make a marriage flourish, is based on how we're feeling, what do we do with our marriage when we don't feel it anymore? I think so many marriages suffer because the individuals within them have an insufficient concept of what it looks like to love the way God says we're built to do it. To love in a way that goes beyond our feelings in any given moment, because marriage requires an entirely different type of love than that. And we're admittedly at a disadvantage talking about different types of love in the English-speaking world, because we only have one word for it that we have to use to describe a wide array of actions and emotions. We're forced, for lack of a better option, to use the same word to describe the way we feel about our spouse and the way we feel about cheese. Love. Cheese is delicious. I love it, but I have a different relationship with cheese than I do with Jenny. That's not the same thing, even if it's the same word, okay? And the ancient Greeks had 4 different words for love, at least, that we find in the New Testament of the Bible. Storge, eros, adelphoi, and agape. And a few of those are loves that come really naturally and easy to us as human beings, but there's one that stands out from among the pack. It's this word agape. It means this love of the will that's unconditional and unbreakable. And Jesus actually talks about agape love to a whole big crowd of people in this section that we call the Sermon on the Mount. And I want to look at it this morning. So if you have a Bible or a Bible with you, you can open it up to Luke chapter 6. It's right between Mark and John. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, the words will be on the screen. And if you need one or your kids do, we have a bunch at the Next Steps table. We love it when they disappear. Please take what you need before you leave. But here's what Jesus said in verse 32. He said, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. If you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies. And that word for love is agape there. Love your enemies unconditionally. Love your enemies no matter what they've done for you. Love your enemies despite what they've done for you. I say to you, agape, love your enemies. Do good to them and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great. And you'll be children of the Most High. You'll be loving like God loves because He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Look, for all the churchy people in here, those of us who've been around church for a long time, this passage is really familiar. We've heard it, love your enemies. And sometimes with familiar passages, we can kind of numb them or tune them out a little. But I want us all to press pause and realize just how radical Jesus' words are here. Like how profoundly countercultural this is. To say that we don't just have to love people we like, we can love our enemies with like an unconditional love that doesn't depend on what they did to us or what they didn't do to us. Jesus is drawing a stark contrast here between two different types of love and loving. like the human way and the divine way, our way of interacting with one another and God's way of interacting with one another. And he's saying there's a better way, that God's way is actually the way we're built for. It's the way that reflects who God is and how he created us, and it holds the key to a long, happy, fulfilling marriage. Jesus kicks this off with a rhetorical question. He's like, if you love people who love you back, well, what sort of credit were you hoping to get for that? Like, you want an award for loving people who love you? And he acknowledges that love is a type of love. It's just a really natural, easy love, and there's nothing special about it at all. Like, everybody loves people who love them back. It's fun to love people who love you back. It's easy because it's based on our feelings. And the bummer for us is that that's the type of love that comes most naturally to us. It's the type of love we often build relationships on, but it's not the type of love that can make a marriage last. It's a love that's conditional. It's where you love somebody else because of what they do for you. It's kind of contingent upon their performance, upon whether they're doing the things that you want them to be doing or what they have to offer you. And you can be attracted to them and start loving them because of their personality or because of their humor or because of their intelligence, or let's be real honest this morning, because of the way that they look. Like, I've told you guys this before. I'm not trying to be fake up here. The first thing I noticed about Jenny when we were teenagers was not that she was an intelligent, driven young woman. She was, but that's not what I noticed. I noticed she had an excellent jeans. Like, what a nice pair of jeans. That's the first thing I saw. And that's okay. Like, that's good even. If we didn't notice that stuff about each other, we would never be drawn together in the first place. Like, it's okay that we notice that. And it makes sense to love lovely things and lovely people. It makes sense to love things that are by their very nature worthy of being loved. We're conditioned to look for value in the things and the people we choose to love. Like, for so many of us, our first question, our first lens is, what do you have to offer me? But the problem is that circumstances and people change. And that loving feeling of attraction was based solely on what they offered you. It's not enough to weather the storms of most marriages. It's frail. It's frail because it's based on feelings, and feelings tend to fade or falter whenever their object fails. See, what Jesus is talking about when he says it's possible for us to love our enemies is a whole different thing. It's not a love that seeks value from the people it chooses. It's a love that creates value in the people it chooses. Reminds me of Toy Story. Right, Woody is this scruffy old cowboy toy who is not particularly cool by any stretch of the imagination. He's got outdated technology with his dumb pull string, and he's faded and cracked and torn in some places. And he's constantly worried that he's not worthy, that he's not shiny enough, that he's not good enough for Andy to love him, that he's just going to be replaced because he's messed up and not cool. And it takes him 2 full movies to get this. But he's a toy, so we're going to give him a little bit of grace on being slow with the uptake. But eventually he learns, like, Andy doesn't love him because he's flashy. And Andy doesn't love him because he's a valuable collector. Andy loves him just because Andy wants to love him, because he chose it. And that scene at the end of the first movie always gets me when they're all packed up and they're leaving their house to move to a new house for the last time. And Andy looks in the middle seat and Woody's not there. He says, "Mom, we can't leave without Woody. Where's Woody?" And he's not saying, "Mom, there might be a valuable collectible item inside for which we could receive payment." That's not it. See, "Mom, I don't want to go if Woody's not going. I don't want to be where Woody isn't. I love that raggedy old cowboy. We're connected together because I want to love him." See, some things are loved because they're valuable, but some things are valuable because they're loved. And thank God for that, because that's the kind of love he has for us. There isn't anything inherently worthy about any one of us that the God of the universe should step out of eternity into history and give up his life to save us. I mean, in fact, we could all probably make a gigantic list of things that are unworthy about us. We rejected him, but he decided, he chose to love us anyway, to die so we could be reconciled to him, and his love creates incredible value in us. We live in a world where there's all kinds of voices constantly whispering into our brains, "You're not worthy, you're not good enough. If anyone really knew you, they would never love you. You're too far gone." But we know that's a lie because the creator of the universe knows absolutely everything about us, and he chose to love us. He chose to give everything for us anyway. And that type of love is not a love of the emotions, it's a love of the will. Here's the thing I want us to see this morning as we begin to rebuild the cracked foundations of our relationships, as we start taking steps to tighten the knot. The kind of love that makes a marriage flourish is not just a feeling, it's a choice. It's a decision based on the character of the lover, not the performance of the beloved. I mean, it's easy to love people when they're performing, when they're doing all the things we want them to do, when they're filling up all the needs we have from them as a spouse and a friend, when they look the way we want them to look, when they're asking no more of us than we want them to ask. But when they stop performing, when, not if, those feelings go away. And at that point, we can either choose to withhold love because they haven't earned it, or we can choose to give it anyway because it's not based on a what have you done for me lately mentality. It's built on the choice to give what they need, not what we want, which is exactly what God's love does for us. When you tie the knot, you make a choice that you're not going to be a me anymore. You're not a me. You're a we. And you decide, for better or worse, forever. From that day forward, love is not going to be a feeling. Love is a lifestyle of self-sacrifice. I'm going to say it again louder for the people in the back. Love is a lifestyle of self-sacrifice. It reflects who God is and how God loves and who he made us to be, not just in relationship with him, but in relationship with one another. Love is life lived through the lens of what the other person needs and not what you want, even when they aren't doing the same thing for you. It's like marriages, they got people in them, and people have fears, and people have faults, and people have failures. People come with an inevitability of imperfection, which is part of what makes relationships and marriage so profoundly beautiful, the ups and the downs. I mean, there are times in every marriage where you just look at each other and you think, man, this is everything I ever wanted. This is amazing. We are a match made in heaven. And that may be true. But hail and lightning and tornadoes are also made in heaven. And there's times when that looks a whole lot more like marriage. When you look at each other, like, if I never see you again, that feels a little soon, okay? That's just it. But here's the deal. If we can realize that this love God designed us for, this love that reflects who he is and how he loves, creates space where we're loved by him even when we're not worthy, that we can walk out into a marriage and love self-sacrificially, knowing that neither one of us is fully worthy of the love we're giving and the love we're receiving, but we do it anyway in an unconditional way because we're looking to create value in somebody else rather than seek it from them. All right, so love's not a feeling, it's a lifestyle of self-sacrifice. Second big myth that we're going to talk about today as we begin tightening the knot is this: to be complete, you have to find the one. Oh, Hollywood loves this idea. Like, if any part of you didn't believe it, go watch a rom-com and you're going to come out convinced that the right person could just change everything about your life. We buy into it. And we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to find that person who can make all of our wildest dreams come true forever. And then we find the one, and then we marry the one, and then this thing happens. We have a day or a season where we don't feel quite as complete and quite as fulfilled as Hollywood said that we would feel, and there's only one conclusion we can make at that point, right? Oh no, he's not the one. She's not the one. I got the wrong one. Oh man, what? Like, because if I had the right one, the one, then life would never be frustrating at all ever again. So this, oh man, maybe that girl at the office, maybe that guy at the gym was easy to talk to. Maybe they would make me feel full in the place where I feel empty right now. Or maybe no one can. Maybe I should just break this knot and just go it alone because I must not have found the one. We're going to do some brain surgery this morning and change the way we think. All right? You ready? The object of love and marriage is not to find somebody else who would complete you. I'm sorry, Renee Zellweger. Like, that was a really touching, beautiful line, but that's just not true. It's not how it works. Nobody can do that. I don't want to apologize on behalf of the church because I think sometimes in church we pay lip service to that idea that nobody else can complete you, but then we kind of treat it like marriage really is all about fulfillment and being full, and we treat single people like they're temporarily deficient. I mean, never mind that Paul was single, and without him we'd be missing 23% of the New Testament. And Jesus was single right up until they killed him, okay? But there is some marriage math in the Bible. In Genesis, when God's describing his design, his picture of marriage, he says, "For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two shall become one." Notice what it says there, that two shall become one. It does not say that the halves will become whole. That's not how this works. And I've been doing ministry long enough to have observed this. All right, if you go into a marriage as a half, two halves will make hell, not whole. All right? It's a truth bomb. I'm dropping another one on you. This myth that to be complete, you got to find the one. It's not actually a myth. It's 100% true. I know I just told you it's a myth, but that was a myth that it's a myth. And now I got you all twisted up, and some of you are offended. But let me explain this, all right? There is one that every single person on this planet needs because we got a hole. We got an empty space inside of our hearts and our souls that needs to be filled. We have this longing inside of us to be really known and loved anyway. And even if we can't articulate that, we can feel it, which is why our culture is so obsessed with this idea of going out there and finding the one that can finally complete us and fill in all those cracks where we feel empty. But the problem is, in all of our searching for the one, we are looking for the wrong one. Because there's not a human on this planet who can make us whole. And if we find somebody and we put that on them, we're going to end up disappointed and they're going to end up destroyed. But there is one who completes us, the one who created us, who designed us, who wired us, who gave his life and rose again to reconcile us to a relationship with himself. He's the one that makes us whole. God is your one. I'll say that unapologetically again and again and again and again. God is your one. Your spouse is your two. So if you're married, dating, engaged, I just want you to look at your significant other right now and tell them, you're a real number two. Okay? You can interpret that however you want. Like, do what you want with that, but it matters that we get the order right? Because if we reverse it, then what we find is fulfillment and satisfaction in neither. But if we put God at the beginning and our significant other in the right space, we can find deep fulfillment and meaning and purpose in both. Jesus promised us that. Like at one point in the book of Matthew, he got asked by these guys, like, hey, what's the most important commandment? What's the best thing you can possibly do in your life? And he didn't say, oh, you know what? The best thing you could do is love your spouse with all your heart and mind and soul and strength. He said this, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And in Matthew 6:33, he reminded us, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. And Jesus is saying, look, I know there's a void inside your soul. I know there's this deep human longing to be loved. And it's there because you were created to be connected to me. You were created to live and move and breathe in my love. And when that connection is figured out, the rest of your life starts to make sense. If we want marriages to be all they can be, if we want marriages that are more than the sum of their parts, marriages where we're giving and receiving love at a rate and a level that we don't deserve, that we're not worthy of, marriages that really do fulfill us and bless us, and not just us, but bless the people around us too, then we gotta get this right. They gotta be built on the foundation of a connection to the one. And the bottom line of this is you don't need a two to be full. You don't need a two for your life to be complete. You don't need a two to walk around every single day with incredible meaning and purpose, but you do need the one. And I'll tell all you this from the bottom of my heart. Let me plead with you for a second. I'm not above begging, because I've seen so many people mess this up, and I've had a front row seat to the carnage. If you want a two someday, if getting married is in your life plan, whether it's soon or a long way off, and you want to build your marriage on a strong foundation, you want to tie a tight knot and keep tightening it, or if you have a two right now, if you're married, I desperately want you to tighten the knot because I know how much it means in your life and in the lives of everybody you touch. I promise you guys this. Please know this. If you try to do marriage, if you try to enter into another relationship or to a relationship with another person without God involved, at some point along that journey, you're going to need that person to be for you what only God can be. And you're going to ask that person to give to you what only God can give. And it's going to be a disaster. You'll both end up disillusioned and devastated by the outcome. And if you don't believe that's true, I guarantee you there are people sitting in this room with the scars to prove it. So I'm going to ask us all this morning to commit to something. If we're really going to tie strong knots, if we're going to tighten the knots we've got, I think there's a commitment that needs to be made by every single one of us. And that commitment looks different depending on where we're at in our life journey. If you're single but you want to get married someday, and you'd like a marriage built on the foundation of a lifestyle of self-sacrifice, this unconditional, here's the commitment I want you to make. I will seek the one while preparing for my two. I'll seek the one while preparing for my two. If we really want our lives and our relationships to be all they can be, to be all that God designed them to be, then we got to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Because I think it's so easy, and so many of us get caught up in this, it's so easy to be so focused on finding the right one that we never take the time to become the right one. You guys, if you want to be the person that the person you're looking for is looking for, then it starts with connecting to God. Because that connection to like his love, it completes you and it makes you whole. It lets you know that you are loved unconditionally and eternally. And when you know that, you can walk out and love somebody else self-sacrificially. And for people who are single and staying there, here's the commitment I want you to make. I will seek the one on behalf of the twos around me. And that's a big ask. That's a self-sacrificial ask. There's not a lot in it for you. But we all know this marriage thing is hard. And those of you who are single, you're in a unique spot to bless and to pray for and to speak into the lives of the married people around you, whether they're your friends or your kids or your neighbors. And I want to ask you to do that. We all win when marriages get better. And if you would pray for and support and love the married people around you, they'd be better, and we'd all be grateful. And married people, if you want to tighten the knot, right? If you want to shore up the cracks in the foundation of your relationship, if you want your marriage to be all that God designed it to be, and listen, I believe that in a marriage you have incredible potential. God wants to do something in you through the marriage and in both of you because of the marriage. God has a plan. If you want your marriage to be like that, if you want it to be self-sacrificial, if you want to give more love than the other person deserves and receive more love than you deserve, if you want that, I'm convinced this is the commitment you need to make. I will seek the one with my two. Well, to tighten the knot, we got to make a habit of pursuing God together, of chasing Jesus alongside one another. And I know for some of you, that's super intimidating. You're like, how in the world do I do that? I don't even know where to start with. I don't even know how to chase Jesus on my own, let alone with somebody else. What does this even look like? And I told you at the beginning, I want to resource you, and I do. We got a resource for you. And there's a whole lot of ways to chase Jesus together. There's no blueprint or roadmap or 5 boxes to check. You can go to church together and worship together and read the Bible together and pray together and do house groups together. There's a lot, but I don't want to give you a lot. I want to give you one thing this morning. At the back, at that resource table, there's a booklet that says 14 days to a better marriage. It's incredibly simple stuff. Okay, this is a little passage from the Bible, 2 paragraphs that explain it, and some questions that you can ask. Ask each other and ask God as you begin to chase Jesus together. And what I'm asking all you married people, engaged people, wherever you're at, I want you to pick one of these up and say, okay, we'll try that for 14 days. And there are some of these booklets at random that have $25 gift cards to Texas Roadhouse in them. So you might get a tighter knot and a date out of it, right? And I realize that's a shameless way for a pastor to try and con you into taking this stuff, but I don't even care. I don't mind that at all. Because I'm convinced if you do this like habit of seeking God together will become a foundational habit upon which you build a whole bunch of other habits that help you tighten the knot. We all have those, like disciplines that breed disciplines that breed disciplines. We have habits at the foundation. For me, it's making the bed. I make the bed every morning. It starts my day off right. If I don't make the bed, then I know I'm going to skip flossing. And if I skip flossing, then I'm going to skip working out. And if I skip that, then I'm not going to eat right. And then I'm not going to sleep as well, and then I'm going to be tired, then I'm going to drive distracted, then I'm going to go 26 miles per hour in Windsor Heights and get pulled over, and then I'm going to be angry about it, I'm going to yell at the cop, and I'm going to get tased, then I'm going to run away from the taser, and I'm going to end up in prison. Every morning, I look at that messy bed, and I think, it's this or prison, Mike. And here's what I'm trying to say to you guys. If you don't pick this up, you're probably going to go to prison. Okay, that's the big idea of the whole morning. No, seriously, we have habits. And this habit will look different. Like, you guys got to do you, a way that fits who you are and your lifestyle. But I'm convinced at the core of who I am that chasing Jesus together is a game changer. And I know some of you are still hesitant. You're a little nervous. You're unsure. You're going to try and duck out of here without grabbing this, or you're going to grab it and look for the gift card and put that in your pocket and then lose this in the car. Because tightening the knot is a whole new ball game for a bunch of us. But you guys, I really do believe we can have the incredible, flourishing, meaningful marriages that we desperately desire, that God says marriage is built for. We just can't get them if we keep doing what everybody else is doing. We can't get them unless we do something different. Like, it's measurable. We know what happens if we do what everybody else in our world is doing. It's a 50-50 shot that you survive it. And way less than 50-50 that your marriage thrives. So maybe, just maybe, chasing Jesus together is the something different that changes the odds for us. If I told you you had a 50% chance of getting cancer if you kept drinking tap water, as soon as this service is over, you would all be at Hy-Vee buying up bottles. If I told you had a 50-50 shot of every dime in your retirement vanishing if you don't change your investment strategy, you'd be emailing, calling, tweeting at your broker. You'd get that stuff fixed. If I told you had a 50-50 shot of some random child sneezing in your mouth and giving you the flu if you leave the house tomorrow, you would stay home. And so would I. All of us would. We can keep rolling with the 50-50 odds of believing that love should be a warm, fuzzy feeling and that somebody else out there might just maybe be able to complete us, or we can do something different. We can decide that love is going to be a lifestyle of self-sacrifice, and we can let God come in and fill that void in us and make us whole. And we can seek him first, and we can seek him together. And married people, we can seek him for the next 2 weeks by doing this. So let's go. Will you just pray with me? God, thank you. Thank you for loving us with the love that creates incredible value in us. Thanks for not abandoning us because we were unworthy, but just deciding that you were going to love us with this incredible love of the will and give everything for us. God, would you just make us whole? Would you point our eyes toward you so that we can connect to the relationship that matters most and so that we can be who we need to be in all of our other relationships, God? I just pray for the unmarried people here, for their future marriages. I pray for all of us married people here, that you would bless us, that you would change the way we think, that you'd help us to live and love in a way that reflects who you are and how you love us. And we just thank you for giving us that love, which changes everything about our lives and about our world. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.